Welcome to the Sacred Feminine Power podcast, where we explore the many facets of feminine power and why it is so important for women and for men to step into this power in our world at this time. This is Emmy from Feminine Revered, and my beautiful guest for today is Christine Eck. Christine's passion is accessing the subtle and unique keys to healing and vitality. She's a busy mother to four boys and practices her skills daily. Christine is an Ayurvedic health consultant, a birth and postpartum doula, and the founder of the Center for Sacred Window Studies, an education platform for conscious postpartum care inspired by Ayurveda and other universal traditions found around the world. She established the Universal Mother Principles as a way of accessing the foundational qualities of giving and receiving effective care. The Center for Sacred Window Studies certifies postpartum caregivers from around the world in their online and in-person training programs. Christine runs the Sacred Window podcast and blog, along with hosting monthly educational events to build awareness and educational opportunities for people who work with and support new families. This is such important work, Christine. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's a blessing to have you with us, and I can't wait to see where our conversation takes us today. But before we dive any deeper, Christine, I would love to hear from you since my podcast is called Sacred Feminine Power. What does this term mean to you personally?
Mm. It feels like the source of all that is. It feels like coming from the womb of where we've all been created from. It feels like almost that silent but ever present energy that holds all of us throughout the different transitions of our lives. It feels like that piece of who we are, that witness that is is quieter that we have to pay attention to in order to find that connection. She's not shouty, she's constant. And that is what I find helps me to manage all of the other pieces of how I engage in life is by continuously tapping back into that ever-present source.
Mm. I love how you're describing that and that constant source, that constant presence that is there, especially when we quiet down and really truly listen. That's beautiful. Well, Christine, would you like to share about a challenge that you've met on your path that's really helped you to activate this power within you?
Hmm. I guess what comes to me in this moment is is being in not just a world, but also like a family that is okay. So I grew up with a sister, and I've always been deeply feminine. I would have never described myself as a tomboy, and I don't feel, that it's so much about gender, but there is these forces in society that create, you know, masculine and feminine energetics. And so I've always been directed and geared and naturally drawn towards the feminine. And here I am, mom to these four boys who I can't imagine anybody else as my child than these children and my husband, and living in this very masculine trait dominated world. And so I remember when I was pregnant with my second child, and I was having a conversation with one of my care providers at the time. She was an acupuncturist and she had six children. And she told me, she said, and we didn't know that this baby was going to be another boy. But she told me in regards to my older son, she said, it's, and I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember exactly, but it was like there's great responsibility in raising boys into men. And that landed for me in this space where I realized that I was absolutely sent here to raise this son. And little did I know there would be three more that were coming along. And I find that to be both a tremendous privilege and sometimes it feels terrifying because I want so much for them to be raised in this space of deep respect and deep spirituality. And the world presents them with so much other. And so for me, that feels, yeah, like it's this two-handed experience, one of incredible honor and one of fear, that there's so much that I can do and the rest is faith.
Yeah, I love that you're bringing in that perspective, being a mother of a boy and a girl, but my firstborn is a boy. And I certainly have felt the same way as well, and felt the pressure of society and the expectations that there are for boys and men to be a certain way, to behave in certain ways. And also doing the kind of work that I do and the kind of work that you do that really are in devotion to the divine feminine. How do we bring this across to our own boys in a way that supports them in understanding what's happening in our world without taking on any kinds of beliefs around women being more important than men or girls being more important than boys? Have you found that in your relationship with your boys as well?
Um, I don't know. I think that, they actually, they've been in this, like I've noticed, and I've been holding such gratitude for the stages that they're in right now because there's been this really clear bond in our family that I feel like is everybody's sort of bedrock. And I think that in like the deepest level, they have this awareness of equilibrium and what that means and what that requires. And yet, in popular culture, my oldest is 18, I've got two teenagers, I've got one tween, I've got, a younger one. And so they're seeing a lot, which of course I would prefer to not even be in their conscious space. And yet I can't shield them from all of that. Again, it comes back to like trust that that core within them has the discernment to, you know, really shield itself against what is out there that, we don't want to really penetrate that heart that's so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And there certainly is a lot out there that could penetrate their hearts if they are not able to be discerning. Yeah. And it's a very fine line to walk because of course they have to walk their own paths. And there's only so much that we as mothers can do for them on behalf of them and support them with as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, this is very timely actually, Emmy, because recently I've had conversations with a couple of different friends and, that their partners are really struggling. They're in this place of life where um, there seems to be this vulnerability in the subconscious mind and the conscious mind in mental health and emotional feelings of groundedness and stability. And while I don't fully understand the scope and the answers and the reasons behind all of this, it's pretty evident that there is this tenderness in the subtle body of men as they grow older. And do they have the tools and do they have the access to that ever-present divine feminine, which is sort of like, I feel like it's sort of the source of the healing. and it's that divine masculine that's like the activator of it, but that divine feminine is the source. And without this sort of balanced access to both, it doesn't have solid footing to stand on.
Yeah.
And I notice, in my circles that it's the women who are standing on that solid footing in a lot of families. And it's not actually okay in the long run for everybody's family balance to have one person holding the stability like that. And of course, there's so many diverse circumstances and every family is different. But what I guess I mean to say is that how can I create that resiliency and that access to this dual divine experience, which will help give them the footing they need when society and the ways that we have imbalanced gendered expectations and stereotypes and all of the things, how can our boys grow up to be really solid men in the way that they recognize their connection with the divine feminine, whether or not they call it that or not, but where they can exude and sort of embody those qualities, which are deep listening, which are kind of the ability to witness and not sort of take everything on themselves and kind of make that assumption that they're alone. It's like that universal connection to other people, to other purposes, to so much more than just that isolated, you know, sense of self. And there's something there that is just far too common, I think, and it's scary.
Yeah, you're so right. Yeah. And I believe that as much as we're seeing the rise of the divine feminine in a beautiful way around the globe, we also really need the rise of the sacred masculine now in a big, big way. And we need role models for these young boys growing up, role models who are men, who are deeply seated in their heart power and who understand the value of both feminine and masculine and are not afraid to lead their lives from a more balanced perspective.
Mm, yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it's finding those role models and almost like becoming, I feel like we all have it within. It's just like the purpose is really to continue to unfold as a being and discovering that divinity within ourselves and being able to operate from that first. And, so of course, like every person out there, every man, my husband, all the people, like these kids, like we all have all of the pieces. It's just amplifying it and finding the permission, finding the confidence, finding the that voice within that shows us what to do. It's so interesting. We have this little children's book of runes, like Norway, the stones and my house. And just this morning, my littlest, found it and he found the book and he found the little bag and he like brought it into the kitchen as he was eating breakfast. And I was like, okay, well, why don't you pull a rune, see what you find today. And so he held the bag. I was like, close your eyes and, say what do I need to know today? And so he pulled this little rune. And I'm not super skilled in runes, but I have a dear friend who is, and so I really appreciate them. And so yeah, but seeing his little face light up and the message that he was given this morning, um, that was, and we had this whole conversation about like, one of the things in the description of the rune was like to trust your gut. I was like, do you know what that means? And he was like, yeah, it means like, if your brain is telling you something, but you don't think you should do that, then you shouldn't do that. I was like, yeah, like you're having to like listen closer to what that inner voice is telling you that's what, your gut means in this sentence. And so it was really cool opportunity to have that little moment that was like less than 5 minutes, but it was that opportunity to like remember, like remind him that you have guidance always that's divine. And that is what you can listen to anytime you need it, even if your brain is telling you something. If it doesn't feel okay, then listen to that.
Oh, what a beautiful example. Thank you for sharing that as well. And thank you for raising such a beautiful, sensitive young man. That's really,
It was really an organic opportunity, but trust, like those things, that it seems like it was not orchestrated. It was so random because we haven't looked at that book in probably a year. But yeah, those opportunities show up. They show up all the time. So it's like, yeah, how are we paying attention to the opportunities around us? Because sometimes I get into go mode and I'm not always paying attention. So there's opportunity, yeah, everywhere, all the time.
so true. Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. Well, Christine, I would love to hear a little bit more from you about the Universal Mother Principles. What is this all about, and how did you come to establish this?
Mm. Well, it started in, I guess, the end of 2018, and I was sitting in my basement, kind of hiding from my children because they were upstairs playing and being wild, and I needed like a quiet space. And our team had been creating our first curriculum for the Conscious Postpartum Caregiver Program, which is based on Ayurvedic healing for the postpartum window. And I was so curious about what it was that gave someone the ability to receive care. Like, what was that veil or that filter that allowed for good care to happen and be received by someone? And so I started kind of just meditating on that. Like, what do I need these care providers to understand about how they give support to someone? What are these universal truths here that while the care is going to change for each person, every single person is so different. We can't just create one protocol and give it to every person, but there's a thread here that is universal. And so the Universal Mother Principles just downloaded there for me. And I realized over time, of course, like we we ran that first program and have been running it ever since, and it's expanded and changed, and we've discovered more and learned more. And um, yet, what we have realized about those Universal Mother Principles is that they are, you know, there's so many different ways you could describe it, but I'll describe it the way it lands for me, is that there is this necessary universal mother essence that is the holder, that is the one who creates safety, the one who allows a surrender so that healing can happen.
Mm.
It is the qualities of being seen and of trusting that I can heal, that I can be okay. And when a care provider comes into a space, we all hold these universal, it's like woven into the human experience. They are all innate. We oftentimes will go through life ignoring them, or maybe like have moments where we're not operating through them. But as a care provider, when we can come into a caregiving situation and hold these principles, and they're very basic. It's simplicity and flexibility. It's compassion and listening. it's groundedness, it's non-judgment, it's presence, it's intuition. These are the universal mother principles that when we can operate through them, what we have to offer, whether it's a healing meal, whether it is a healing touch session, a bodywork session, whether it is offering an herbal support food, whether it's wrapping the belly or offering some kind of sitz bath or any basic caregiving modality, when it is offered through the, I don't want to say filter, but for lack of a better word, when it's offered through these universal mother principles, the person can take it in.
Mm.
And what I've discovered over time is that they apply to how I show up for myself. They apply for how I show up for my kids. They apply for how I show up for my business. They show up for, how I operate in conversations like the one we're having right now. If I'm present, if I am a deep listener, if I am showing compassion, if I'm not oversharing, if I'm, offering a balance, then what I have to give can be seen and appreciated and taken into the world with the authenticity with which it has. So it's an exploration. It's something that I'm learning more about daily, and I want, I guess my personal realization with it is that it's given me a tremendous amount of peace. When I can come back to them, I feel steady and peaceful. And if I'm not being mindful of them, eventually I'll notice that things feel off and I've got to come back to it. So, because it's so universal, it seems to show up and be applicable everywhere. And yeah, I'll pause, but that's the story.
Yeah, thank you for sharing more about that. And I love, just as you pointed out, how everything you shared about the principles is indeed applicable to how we raise our boys and our girls and how they support us in everyday situations and in every single moment. That's really beautiful. Um, I'm wondering, Christine, though, what was it that prompted you to start doing this work as a birth and postpartum doula? And why is this work so important, especially now in the times of change and transformation that we're living in?
Yeah. Well, I I was very, very looking forward to becoming a parent, and I was blessed to have had a very smooth and healthy pregnancy with my firstborn. And it was not my first pregnancy, but his pregnancy was really beautiful, and his birth was extremely empowering. But at the time, I didn't know anything about how I would need to heal afterwards, and I didn't understand the scope of postpartum. I didn't have any, I guess, the scope of preparation I did was not adequate to what my needs were. And I felt that was actually really one of the hardest times of my life. I would say that 2-year window after my first was born, I've never felt so disconnected from myself or struggling in so many ways. And it was around the time that my son was a year and a half that I decided to go to school for Ayurveda. And there's a beautiful school about an hour from me, and I was able to work it out so that I could commute. And it was a 2+ year program of Ayurvedic medicine. And it was during that time that I became pregnant again. And one of my colleagues in my program told me about this beautiful teacher Yesha Oaks, who was teaching Ayurveda and postpartum. And I lit up from within. I could not wait to discover more about this. And I was sort of nearing the second half of my pregnancy, and I found this woman and immediately started studying with her and trying to learn everything I could before this baby was born. And what I experienced can't honestly be described to its fullest because the feeling was just a full transformation of going from a place of fear and disempowerment that I might feel like that again to understanding what my body might need and how to cater to that and how to set up support and how this window of time is considered a sacred window in Ayurvedic wisdom, which is the longest continually practiced medical science ever. So we have this wealth of knowledge of Ayurvedic wisdom that we can apply to the human experience, no matter what background we come from, no matter who we are, no matter like we're all humans living on this planet, and we have the ability to understand ourselves through nature. And Ayurveda gives us this lens. So to take, it's kind of like how I said a little earlier about when we feel isolated and sort of stuck in our own experience and we can't expand into sort of the resources and the balance that is around us if we're able to tap into it. So what I experienced that second time after having experienced this knowledge, this wisdom of what Ayurveda guided us through for postpartum healing, it was a coming back to myself. It was an ability to bond with my baby in a way that was not interrupted by um, really hard physical challenges and emotional challenges. It was a recognition that I had a very clear path because way too many people were going into parenthood feeling not themselves, feeling totally disillusioned or depleted or at a loss or confused or anxious or worse. This is not how the standard should be. And yet, this is the standard that we're seeing. So it was so clear to me, honestly, even before I had my baby again, but like after going through it and experiencing the vitality that I had compared to what I didn't have that first time, it was it was clearer than anything that this is what the world is calling for. This is how I can be of service. This is how I can create um, a greater purpose. This is what's being asked of me. This is what's being asked of humanity is to create support here where there is not right now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. There is so little support around that. And the irony, of course, being that birth is the most sacred thing that there is on our planet. Becoming a mother is the most sacred thing. And within patriarchy, that's completely dismissed and belittled in so many ways. And the care that we receive, especially within the Western hospital system, whether it's during pregnancy or during birth or postpartum, doesn't, of course, apply to all institutions everywhere, but to a large extent women are left feeling very powerless. I think you used that word as well. This overwhelming sense of powerlessness, and are often left very alone with the kinds of emotions and physical issues that might arise after birth.
Yeah. 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 And so the subtle spaces that characterize the postpartum window, this is a gift, and it's when something so sacred is dismissed or seen as something to just get through, or this hard thing that you just have to manage, or mom brain, or these dismissive ideas and phrases that we navigate. That is so sad to me because what I understand now is that that subtle space we embody is so deliberate. It's so on purpose. It is this incredible like vortex we get to go through. And what happens if people are treated with the reverence that deserves, that requires to really harness the power there? The it's almost like this. I mean, it is an incredible rite of passage, but there's a shift that happens when you go through a rite of passage where you emerge like shining like the sun, where you are, glowing, and you've gained this incredible new level of beingness. And that is possible when someone is able to access the support, experience the true transformation in a healing way. And when they're seen as having crossed over into that new level. And so, yeah, I mean, in general, I'm a total optimist. So, like, I'm all about, looking ahead and like finding ways to like give that to people. And it's very real that people are not feeling empowered. They're not feeling revered. They're not feeling sacred. And I guess my invitation is, let's find out how this shifts the paradigm when we start harnessing that sacredness, when we start really claiming what it is that we have experienced as a transformational opportunity to become like the most luminous aspect of our beings. It's all there. It's just about how we're ready to let it shine.
Hmm. I love how gracefully you're expressing all of that there, Christine. And yeah, you're just crystallizing it in such a beautiful way. And moving forward on this beautiful planet of ours, this is one of the most important things to pay attention to, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about pretty much a revolution here with what you're doing.
Yeah, I would say it's vital, and I would say that it's way easier than people think.
Mm.
It's like everything is already here. It's just a matter of just falling in love with it, and rejecting things that would overpower it or overshadow it, or it's, yeah. Yeah. It's so simple, and yet it can feel really, really hard.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Do you have practitioners all around the world, or are you focused on a specific location at the moment?
Our online program has students from everywhere. I think we've probably had a student on every continent at this point. Um, it's a really beautiful gathering of people. It's such a diverse scope in that people can take these teachings and create a practice that really reflects their background, their skills, their passions. The doula scope of practice is beautifully flexible in that it's not licensed in a medical model. So it's really about care and relationship and communication and wisdom, sharing wisdom. It's showing up and knowing that new families deserve all the love and support we can give them. And so the folks, of course, who are drawn to this path are pretty exceptional in that aspect of love and compassion that they carry. So it's truly, honestly, a very therapeutic profession to be in for me, because I get to meet and connect with all these wonderful people. But we do have an in-person training that we offer here in the States, in Western Massachusetts, and we do that once a year, which has been such a privilege, for so long. Everything had been online, and to now be able to safely gather and really embody the sacred window principles of care together in person is remarkable. Yeah.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, that must be one of the most beautiful trainings ever.
Well, we think so. But there is such goodness out there. And when we were called to carry the torch for our teacher when she passed along, um, she, was really the only one at the time who was talking about this. And so her program was, when she passed, it was, we're like, we have to keep this going. We have to do it. And now, I mean, there's so many amazing people out there who are talking about this work, who are writing about it and teaching about it. And that feels incredible to be able to see such a dramatic shift in honestly like a pretty short amount of time. So we're making a difference, and it's growing, and it's more and more people are aware of the sacredness of postpartum and the necessity to create support so that we can experience that transformation in the most maximized way and really come out the other side as this enhanced version of who we are, where we feel settled, we feel in connection with ourselves, we feel strong and vibrant. We know how to show up for our children because we're connected with that inner wisdom. We trust that we're cared for, that we have community, that we are not alone in this. We know sisters and community members who will be there for us should we need anything. And in turn, we're there for them. Like this is conscious care. And so, yeah, it's a privilege to do this work.
Oh, how wonderful. How would our listeners find out more about you and this beautiful work that you do?
Well, I suppose in all the magical online spaces, we have a spot. So sacredwindowstudies.com is our website, at Sacred Window Studies on Instagram and the social places. But most importantly, like I always tell people, just, shoot me an email, Christine at sacredwindowstudies.com, because I talk to people a lot who are feeling this call and wondering where this road can take them and how they can impact their communities and how they can create a profession out of providing care to new moms and families. And this at the root of it, we're people who love to do this, and we love to talk to others who are feeling that call too.
Mm, beautiful. Oh, how wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. Such important work and really truly a symbol of the divine feminine rising on our planet. All that you're doing is really just so powerfully in her lap, in her embrace, in a
Oh,
sacred way. Yeah.
I love that. And, Emmy, I really appreciate the way that you hold space for people on your podcast, and I really feel that the impact of these conversations is creating a shift in that balance. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much for those words as well. Beautiful. Well, Christine, is there anything else that's still coming through for you in this moment that you feel would be important to share?
Mm, yeah, I think I mostly just feel deep gratitude and almost like a curiosity about what is coming next around the bend, and I guess just a reminder to, like, yeah, look for the opportunities everywhere. We're presented with divine feminine gifts everywhere we look every day, and how can we create an imprint? How can we create an opening um, to enlarge that? I love that. So curiosity, look around.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you for leaving that message with us as well, Christine. And again, thank you for coming onto the show and for doing all this beautiful work that you do. I appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Emmy.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Just for a moment, let's bring our focus and our awareness on this beautiful energy that's being activated. And imagine sending this energy to everyone and everything on our planet to truly remember that we are all one, and that the more of us have the courage to step into our sacred feminine power and really tune into those inner nudges and follow them, the more quickly our planet will also heal and ascend. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening.